Ladies, gentlemen, everybody, welcome to Media Voices. I'm Chris Sutcliffe. This episode is the second of two special episodes produced in partnership with Media Makers Meet, or Mx3. Myself, Esther and Peter were lucky enough to be involved in their AI summit in late 2023, from organisation through to speaking. Now, it was invaluable for us as well as the audience, not just to be kept abreast on what publishers, recruiters and experts consider the opportunities and threats of AI for media companies, but also to discover how publishers are already implementing AI tools and experimentation into their organisations. The first episode, which is available on our feed and our site, voices.media, shares the former, whereas this episode instead features the latter, practical and tangible lessons on how media companies are already using AI and hopefully how we all can too. Before we begin, Media Voices would like to thank Mx3 once again for their partnership on the summit. And if you would like this information in written form, I've actually written up an article about my own key takeaways from the day, which is live on voices.media as soon as this episode goes up. Now, to begin with, multiple panelists discussed how they prepared the ground for AI integration in their newsrooms. It isn't as simple as you might expect as just deciding to use AI without considering everything from how it changes workflow and organizational structure to deciding how to measure its effectiveness. Now, FT Strategies is the subscriptions consultancy from the Financial Times. If anybody's qualified to sell expertise around subs, it's them after all. As such, they are constantly keeping on top of absolutely everything that might impact subscription sales, retention, propensity modeling, all the rest. In a very well-received session, manager Alia Itzkowitz and its senior consultant Sam Gould explained how they use design sprints and an experimental approach to identifying business opportunities for publishers.
So this might not come as a surprise to you, but I think it's worth highlighting. Given the excitement around generative AI right now, we saw the majority of ideas could be summarized in two categories. One, personalization and reformatting, repackaging of existing content. And secondly, what we're calling editorial assistance, so the sub-editing function. And it was very interesting because we had, as I said, 20 different teams that were all working independently. And myself and my colleagues, we were going around the room and I kept hearing the same ideas all day from different teams, even though they weren't talking to each other. So some very clear trends that are emerging right now in terms of where people are placing their attention with respect to AI. And we actually pulled this together. I just went around the room asking people what their ideas were all day. The other areas where we saw some ideas but fewer were using personalization for more commercially oriented use cases. So things like, how can I create audience segments to enable more personalized advertising, for example? Or we also created another catch-all category called Other, which included some really interesting ideas that were more particular to those businesses. So one or two ideas that I can share with you. We had one organization there that's a news agency for their country. They received lots of inbound emails about news events, things that are happening nationally. And that man's focus for the day was, can I come up with a way to automatically route these emails to the correct people within my team? So quite a specific use case to him. We had another publisher looking at budgeting. So if you think of our framework, that's very much in the green ring, business operations, use cases that we might not immediately think of, depending which part of the news organization we sit in, but areas where there probably are huge efficiencies to be gained. So there were definitely some interesting sort of more one-off use cases, but as I said, a lot of enthusiasm around recreating the same piece of content in bullet point format, for example. Can we build a version of the same story that's better for younger audiences, that's easier to digest for the young people with shorter attention spans? A lot of enthusiasm around use cases like that. And that also begs the question, is this something that we should be looking to build or buy, which we'll come on to later, but that was a big topic of conversation for many of these larger bubbles is there something that's out there already that can do this for us, or is this something that we should look to be developing ourselves?
And of course, once those opportunities have been identified, there is a need to actually achieve them. So here's a selection of questions that the FT Strategies team considers necessary to ask before putting any lessons into practice.
Speaking of risk, this was one of the final exercises that we got people to step through, was basically asking them, what do you need to do next? You've come up with this idea today, but how are you actually going to take this into action? So some themes that were very clear from the various groups. We saw a lot around now we need to go get buy-in. Now we need someone in our business to give us the money to do this. So how do we do that? Some really interesting conversations beginning to happen around ROI and how do you prove that you're either saving money or generating new revenue through these solutions. So how do you go and make that case to your senior stakeholders? That was sort of the next step. Which Charlie's mentioned, some sense of accountability there as well. Who's going to be responsible for this? We had some small teams where someone I was working with, he was just putting his own name next to every action that needed to happen, because that is the reality that in a lot of businesses there's one person who's sort of driving this forward. So who's gonna actually do this? Risk mitigation, as Sam just spoke about. And then we've already covered this off, the question of, is this something that we need to buy or build? And if we want to build it, do we actually have the in-house know-how to do that, or do we need to hire someone, which another one of the presentations today was about. So do we have the skills in-house or not? Is there some way we can upskill or look to hire?
Across the day, Peter spoke to a number of the speakers to get condensed versions of their sessions. Now, in a very, very well-received presentation, Roxanne Fisher, Director of Digital Content Strategy at Immediate Media, outlined how the media company is experimenting with and leveraging AI to solve its business goals.
I'm Roxanne. I work for Immediate Media as the Director of Digital Content Strategy, which is essentially being an essential team helping our brand teams to optimise their output, do things like use data properly, and this year it's all been about generative AI.
So my favourite bit of your presentation was these numbers that went from 50-50, happy, not happy about AI, to then this 80-20. And one of the things I'm interested in, and you might not be able to tell me this, but did people say why they changed their minds?
Yeah, when we've spoken to people, what they appreciated most about the journey we've been taking on this year is having the permission to experiment with AI. I don't think it's the case at all media organisations at the moment that you're encouraged to use these tools, but we also have given them guidelines to help them use them safely and carefully, so they can kind of move forward and not only develop skills for the company but for themselves to be able to use AI, be at the forefront of what's going on, and know that they are doing it in a way that isn't going to damage the reputation of the brands that we all love.
Sure. Do you think that 50% negativity, if you like, was based on a lack of understanding then?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's still there, and I think if you did that survey any day of the week, it would probably change depending on what's been in the news. But a lot of it, when we first started on this journey at the beginning of the year, a lot of the negativity was more fear-based. So I think the negativity was mainly based around people being afraid of what it meant for their jobs and their roles and not really knowing how to start. And then the kind of pessimism about the fact that this was actually a thing that was to stay. We'd just come hot off the heels of NFTs obviously being the next big thing, and then kind of dying away quite quickly for the time being. So yeah, I think a lot of people just thought this was the next hyped thing that wasn't going to touch their roles and their jobs.
So my last thing is, if you're not immediate, you're maybe a smaller publisher.
I'm so sorry. It's got the back of my throat.
And you want to kick-start this process, you want to get your negative people to be positive. What's the starting point?
The starting point for us was really, I think, having people who are willing to get stuck in. So we were using the tools ourselves, and I wouldn't call myself an expert in generative AI, but I know enough to know what's reasonable to ask of people. So I think kind of walking the walk and talking the talk, and kind of practicing what you preach is really important. I think giving people the space and the opportunity to experiment, so that's not only giving them permission, but it's giving them access to the right tools, giving them time to actually learn, and we found bringing people from different departments across the business together to share learnings and working with people who they haven't worked with before was really helpful. That really, especially in our experimentation days when people worked on projects together, AI projects, I think that was really, really helpful. A lot of feedback we got was they really appreciated that. And I think building in some frameworks and easy ways for people to get started is a really important thing.
John Barnes is the Chief Digital Officer at B2B publisher and information provider William Reed. Now, I was lucky enough to interview him on the stage about their Waddle In team, which was set up to identify opportunities around AI. Now, to begin with, I asked him what Waddle In means and what ethos it expresses.
We came up with this idea for Waddle In. It's a joke on a pub, so waddle in, come in, but also in a bar. Because we love journalists and that. And the reason it sort of started is I was getting enormous amounts of email, like, I've got this question about this question about that, and I was trying to respond to everybody. Just thought, well, we've got teams, let's set up a good team around this concept of AI and how it might impact business and what it could do. And rather like a kind of social club or a bar, everyone's welcome. It's not about being an expert or not. It's about having a kind of an interest, point of view, perspective. So we've probably got about 60 members now in the end. You have to sort of ask to join. It's just not an open group. It's very easy to join. We summarise the conversations each month and push it out to business. You can find people who are experts and things in there. And it's also a place for pitching ideas, a bit like we just heard at Medias. It's more informal, but a lot of the ideas get pitched. We sort of put our hand in our pocket, it looks good, and start investing in it. And it's just been a very interesting way of getting people together to talk about things. And it's about a question that how to really say something in it is working for people.
What's the timescale on that? Especially the speed of generative AI and how much it's transformed everything. It's been so rapid.
Yeah.
So what was the actual timescale of setting that team up?
It literally got set up in like hours. And sort of the idea of doing it, Teams is very easy tool to use. We're not too heavy on rules and things like that. But the main thing is we want you to contribute. So I guess it's been running now for about 18 months. It's getting bigger, the amount of content is getting much greater. It's replaced Twitter for a lot of people, so they're sharing stories and stuff. And we also get to, have a few social events out of it as well, so we try and not do it all in the cosm of Teams, but try and get people down into the canteen and things to sort of meet up, have a drink, swap notes and stuff. So.
And that just seems so smart because there is so much happening in the space. It's impossible for our meetings to be interested all of it, especially having a team that just is as much as a social aspect to talk about AI. It's sort of tangible and it's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So I wondered then, what, over the course of that time, what have been some of the outcomes that you've seen in addition to kind of the chats and the kind of sharing of expertise?
Sure. So if you look at sort of break it down to a couple of things. There's different areas of interest for people. They're sort of very much, I want to make something, I want to do something, I've got this idea. Very often it's something they want to do with assistance from some other team. Equally, and I can give some examples there in a moment, equally, we get people to say, what sort of smart AI have you seen around? You've been at a conference or you've met another publisher, and that's thrown up some kind of interesting tools that we've evaluated and started using. So an example of that might be Adobe Sense, which we had to purchase, but allows us to, through Adobe AI, see when people are active on websites and engage with them on newsletters at that time to make them more active. So that's a very sort of productivity engagement kind of thing. Equally, we found out about the Microsoft Autopilot project through some of the people on the team, so we applied to join and we joined. And then we've now hooked up the Microsoft AI tools with something called Clarity, which is a kind of hotjar kind of tool where you can look at page views, journeys, all that kind of stuff. But the interesting thing is, if you've ever used those kind of tools where you've got a recording and you try to figure out a user journey, as soon as you put AI on it, it tells you what the user's doing. You immediately realise that all those people from Sainsbury's middle management are just terrified about Morrison's. And so, okay, how does that help us with our kind of editorial approach to things like that? And then on the other side of the fence, we've got some people that are quite techy, who've sort of written almost like prompting tools, and probably the most successful of those is one that's helping marketers write better emails to get better engagement for things like award entries or sign up, sort of subscription initiatives and things like that. So it's a tool that it can help you sort of structure the communication so that it's not writing it for you, but rather like this kind of search engine optimization tool. It's making sure you're getting all the right things in it so that you can actually get the best kind of result.
And that's obviously delivering some tangible value back to the business as well, which is fascinating. Does anybody have any questions to join about any of those projects just before we move on? We'll have time again anyway. So, how's that team impacting how the wider business thinks about AI? I know we never really approached a statement about how you're using AI and how you're not using AI. So
yes.
Did that Model team feed into that kind of overall?
Well, interestingly, the Model N team picked up the fact that, rather like Rox's presentation, people were worried, excited in equal measure. We were probably 50-50. We haven't done the follow-up kind of survey, so I now need to do that, to give me an idea to do that. But basically, people were worried about, would it replace my job? How are we going to be using it? Are we using it? Are we not going to use it? It was also prompted by some questions from clients, like, what are you doing with this data? Is that in AI? All that kind of stuff. So we decided it would be a good idea to sort of publish this statement. We used the model to basically collaborate on the content. We had our chief, our legal counsel was involved, the CEO was involved, put it together, then we put it out to the business to say, is anybody worried about any of this, or do you want anything to go? And then we published it out to our corporate website early November. And it's been quite an interesting thing. We've had a lot of response from that. Some of the customers are saying, that's quite innovative, we haven't seen that with other people in this space. We ripped the idea off shamelessly from Wired, I have to say, but it's proved to be quite good, because the principle of what we're trying to be is sort of transparent, sort of ethical, human oversight, all of those kind of things. So by sort of explaining in that kind of formal way what we're doing and more importantly to say what we're not doing, I think that's been very helpful for the company to get a grip with where we're going and make it less scary.
As a B2B company, William Reed has many clients, many of whom are equally interested in what the deployment of AI can actually offer to them. So I asked John how William Reed is managing the expectations of its clients while balancing its own needs.
You've got as with any business, you've got a real mix. You've got very big clients who will have a different approach to very small clients. I think the general kind of cut and thrust of what clients want to find out is, where are we using AI? Are we actually writing articles with it? Are we analysing data? What are we doing with it? We've got this prototype kind of badging system going through, so a bit like commercial content. This is client paid, or it's written for the client, it's submitted by the client. We've got a similar thing going on with testing some sort of images about AI assisted, 100% original, that kind of thing. Talking to PPA about that. So that's one kind of area. Then the other area is particularly in terms of how we could use that to obviously not only identify what people are interested in, but try and, because the danger of sort of surfacing content that people are interested in is you sort of go down this doom loop of just serving the same stuff all the time. So what we're trying to sort of figure out and help clients with is how we sort of introduce things that certain companies should be reading about, but maybe they're not. And that's sort of linked to some of the account-based marketing initiatives we've got with certain clients, and that's particularly appealing to clients that are trying to win back or win new clients, because it surfaces stuff you wouldn't maybe normally read about in Nestle or whatever. So that's the sort of thrust of the commercial side.
Ross Light is Chief Strategy Officer EMEA at CI&T. Now, he's taken a forward-looking approach to experimentation within the organisation, and that starts with identifying what role AI actually plays in creation, curation, personalisation, the rest, and what that then frees humans within the organisation up to do.
Yes, the way we look at it at CI&T is this three-act play. The first act, which we're in right now, is around productivity and efficiency. So how can we use AI in order to be able to augment our current processes, speed them up, take away the menial tasks, allow greater efficiency amongst all members of that value chain, basically. So that's where we're right in there today. We're barreling quickly into Act 2, which is hyper-personalisation, which is the ability for AI to start to bring multiple different modalities, multiple different information together for you for your particular needs in response to a natural language question. So all of the standardized ways of us getting information beforehand in the last 20 years of digital has all been about human error and our error in terms of finding things out and going down rabbit holes. AI is going to do the work for us and hyper-personalize around that. That means everything can be aimed around the individual, right? And that has wide implications, not just in terms of content consumption, but also in terms of healthcare and individual healthcare plans and dietary plans and all those issues. And then the third act is because of that hyper-personalisation, we're going to end up in a situation where we're going to see massive disruption to business models. Because the old ways in which business models are being built, and there's old aspects of things I talked about on stage about search advertising and display advertising. If pages aren't there for the adverts to appear on in the same way, how do they get brought to you? Are we going to have agents that are bringing personalised adverts to us? Ultimately, that whole revenue stream is up for grabs, right? And that will happen in every other single sector. You're not going to be in any way avoid the disruption that will happen out of the business models that AI will bring. And again, I talked about things like agents fulfilling tasks for us all the way through to purchase. So I provide an ability for the AI to go off and say, contextually, I need clothes to go to a wedding. I describe what the wedding is, I describe myself, it will come back with different outfits for me, I will choose those or mix those, it will then go off and purchase them for me, and then I'll be in a position whereby they'll be then sent to me in the normal way. That is a fundamentally disruptive business model to everything, into retail, in terms of the shopping experience, the buying experience, and that's what we're going to be seeing, is this new generation of business models fitting around people's personal needs.
So as a publisher, I'm guessing we need to see beyond content and start looking at transactions, start looking at personalization, start looking at integrating all that stuff together.
Yeah, so as a publisher, there's several things which need to be leveraged. Probably the first is trust. So I think that we're going to go through the first act of productivity and the second act of high-personalisation being at a point whereby there's going to be a lot of misinformation out there. And I think people will absolutely want to go to places where they trust. And I think that will be important. I think that as a publisher, you're going to need to understand that your role is as curator as much as generator. And so the curational ability of being able to allow people to delve into subjects that interest them, and also the curational ability of bringing serendipity as well as deep dives, is really important. And I think that role of editor, that role of curator, is going to be needed more and more and more. And in fact, I see really agents as being micro curators of things, in the same way as we have influencers curating stuff today on social. We're just going to be automated in that basis without the human elements through the agent aspects of things. And then you've got to work out how you're going to get paid for it. So I think we've all recognise that over the last 20 odd years that the movement towards individuals paying for something is probably the way forward in this basis, some form of subscription or membership or the likes. And I think we'll have the same issue when it comes down to agents, that those people will pay for a certain amount of trust and the ability to have things personalised to them, and that will become a service that you will pay in the same way. That may or may not be commercially have other commercial revenue streams like advertising. It may have commercial revenue streams around transactions, but the most important thing is to be able to stake a claim in the curational space of to a particular audience for their particular needs, and hyper-personalise around that to the individual's needs, whilst also ensuring that you're bringing the serendipity that comes through normal media publications across the world. That's what we still need, that right balance.
And of course, it would be remiss of us not to mention the vast array of functions AI can and already is playing within journalists' jobs. Jan Thorsen is CEO of Labrador CMS, which integrates AI tools into the workflow of journalists. Now, historically, AI has been seen to streamline those roles, allowing journalists to focus on what really, really matters. But Thorsen takes a more forward-facing approach, looking at what it will actually offer to journalists in the future.
So, in terms of using AI, what's the benefits of bringing it into the system?
It's to empower production and also to make it more to make the product better. So if you, for example, for tags, I think the AI is better for tags than a journalist. The AI don't spell Hillary Clinton wrongfully. Journalists do. So you have a better tag system, and it's also better for journalists tend not to be that good at writing SEO titles because you have to change your angle of how to write it, so the AI is much better for it.
So of all the sites that you're using, is everyone using AI?
No, some of them don't like it, of course, but they tend to use it for these things, the tags and SEO titles. Some of them have just discovered it. We have sent them information, we showed it to them, but some of them are really onto it. So some of them have started to use it right away. I think it depends on the editor.
So the ones that don't like it, what is it they don't like about it?
I'm not sure, but maybe they are. You heard this conference. Most of this conference have been about the fear about AI, that AI might not tell the truth. We are not using the AI to search the web. We are just using it on top of what the journalists have written. So we don't try to make the story. The journalist should make the story, and then we can enrich it with a better SEO title and tags, or maybe a fact box or a summary.
So is every customer that you have using the same version of the product, or can they customize it?
All our customers have the same version, but the largest client have a developer access, so then they can change whatever they want on it.
Do they know? This is maybe a strange question, but do they know that they're using AI, or do they think they're just using a better CMS?
Now it actually says in the editor, it says that this is AI based on a version, and it's also the setting is based for every journalist. The journalist should know if they are using AI or not. So every journalist have to activate it themselves.
And do they tell the readers that it's AI, that there's AI involved?
Maybe, I'm not sure. But if you make the tags on AI, should you tell them? I'm not sure. Yeah. But the system, the default of fact box says this fact box is made by AI and double checked by a journalist.
So you said it's changing very quickly.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea where this is going to go?
We all have some idea where it's going to go, but right now it's really good at making a summary of a text. But I don't think the AI, if you are working in a local or national newspaper, everybody's talking about AI that can produce article, but they don't. AI can't find the news. The news is written by the journalist. So right now it's just like a calculator. A calculator can help you to use numbers more easily, like a spreadsheet. I don't think you're right that if you use a spreadsheet, this number is made by a spreadsheet.
Well, thanks once again to Media Makers Meet for the AI Summit. We were delighted to be media partners. One thing is absolutely for sure, AI is only ever going to become more integrated into publishers' business models. It's going to suffuse everything from editorial processes to personalization to commercial decision-making. Stay tuned to Media Voices and Mx3 for more information on how publishers are using AI in their own organizations. Now, you can do that by going to voices.media. While you're there, why not sign up to our daily newsletter, which keeps you abreast of the 4 most important media stories every single day of the working week. And if you're somehow flush with cash after the holiday period, maybe you've got a generous nan like I do, why not contribute to keeping the Media Voices tower lights on by donating to our Ko-Fi? Now, we're going to be back with a regular series of Media Voices in the very near future, but until then, thank you so much for listening, Happy New Year, and goodbye.